Good morning, everyone. It's Ben Buckner with Ag Resource Company in Chicago. It's Friday, May 2nd, and we've got ag markets that are broadly higher, if just a little bit this morning. And I think guidance is a little positive. There is kind of something for everyone based on weather, macroeconomic news. But I think the dominant factor today is one, US Chinese trade relations are, if nothing else, thawing relative to just about every day so far of the trade war. Talking about talking is kind of the theme that's dominating the financial media this morning. And so I think that has given some hope to maybe some progress being scored with respect to trade deals. Maybe not with China immediately, but again, that relations are on the margin improving, has given some support to the Board of Trade today. At the same time, we do have, I think, generally favorable U.S. weather into the middle part of May. There will be some regional issues, too much water in some places, and we're kind of watching the lack of water in some others. But overall, again, we've highlighted the last couple of days, planning progress will stay aligned with longer term averages and probably accelerates pretty quickly about the middle part of May. Maybe some hot spots we'll talk about longer term, but for now, I think weather is kind of a hurdle to the bulls case this morning and then probably for the next couple of weeks. Just kind of jumping right into it. Again, the financial media this morning dominated by China talking about talking. China Commerce Ministry there has said it's evaluating the possibility of trade talks with the U.S. And I think that implies going to Washington to start some kind of dialogue. As has been the case, for the last couple of weeks, there's nothing concrete. We don't think this means much, if anything, in terms of Chinese buying in the short term. But again, this is just improved relative to the last 60 days. So I think that's kind of the hot spot in the financial and agricultural markets today is hope for some kind of dialogue, and let's get this process started. Uh, Otherwise, I think the main benefit from the perception of thawing U.S. Chinese relations may be wheat. We've talked a lot about the excessive fund to short position in the U.S. wheat market and the European wheat market. I think the global net shorts probably the highest it's ever been. Chinese wheat stocks are not small. They're still pretty large, but they have dropped quite a bit since 2019-20, and really in the last couple of years as well. So what does China need or want to have in terms of reserves, I think would be the big question. And we think that if China doesn't import more wheat next year than this year, Chinese wheat stocks will drop another 10 or maybe 14 million tons. So we're not sure at what point you cross some kind of threshold that China comes back to the world market, but we do think we're moving in that direction rather than away from it. This has collided with really one of the worst spots on Earth in terms of rainfall over the last 45 to 60 days. The graphic here shows 30-day percent of normal rainfall in China. The winter wheat belt is highlighted, and a large portion of the crop, probably 40 or 50% of it, seen really little or no rainfall in the last 30 days. It's time for improvement, but there's really no relief there in sight, at least for the next 2 weeks, based on model guidance. And all those computers are pretty much agreeing that the heart of the winter wheat belt in China does stay arid and warmer than normal for another 2 weeks. So I think if you don't see weather change thereafter pretty quick, you got to kind of start ratcheting your Chinese wheat yield down. And so that accelerates maybe the need for imports in 25, 26. And we're kind of highlighting this again. China is kind of a black box in terms of wheat supply and demand and trade, but it just doesn't take much, I think, to tighten the global wheat balance sheet. And it certainly doesn't take much in terms of Chinese import growth to tighten the U.S. wheat balance sheet. I think adding 3 million tons to Chinese wheat imports or something like that in 25, 26 does alter things enough to, I think, you find support in the market there. So it's something that we're really going to keep an eye on. If nothing else, in the background, we do have, U.S. Chinese relations talking to one another, we hope, but also weather. It's just kind of fundamental. Chinese weather has been pretty bad the last month and probably stays that way for another month. Whereas in the U.S., I still think things look pretty good. Drought and abnormal dryness even almost completely eliminated from Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois, getting smaller, less intense across the southern plains. And on April 30th, the last day of every month, NOAA updates their 30-day drought forecast. You can see here on the right that they are projecting drought removal, Kansas, Oklahoma, and the Texas Panhandle. Drought stays in place in the upper Midwest and Central Plains. That may be a hot spot that we kind of start to focus on more over the next couple of weeks. It's far too early for concern, but eventually you would like to see more rain, sustained mild temperatures across sort of the spine of the U.S., and we'll see how that evolves. But for now, I do think weather's kind of a hurdle to the bulls case. We're going to plant this crop really, really fast. And I don't think water is going to be an issue for most people, at least for the next 2 to 4 weeks. We all know moisture demands are pretty low. So I think those are the two things we've got. And ultimately, it still results in, I think, a pretty choppy session, as we have seen all week. But the Bears may struggle to make their case this morning, given the positive macro news. And as we're kind of watching some weather hot spots, Europe, the Black Sea, they need more rain, as does China. So probably neither side gets much leverage today. We'll kind of revisit all of the macro news and weather stuff Sunday night on Monday morning. So stay tuned. We're going to do a lot of more work in the next couple of days on new crop supply and demand. What is the probable scenario of grain, oilseed stocks in 25, 26? What does that mean for price? Kind of wanted to provide the framework of managing risk as we get into the growing season. So again, dollar, start check, get you 30 days access, download the app. We've got some pretty incredible content, hoping to get new content over the next several weeks and months. So stay tuned. All the best in the market today, and we'll be back at you on Monday morning. Thanks.